Hey, what's up guys? This video is for section 5.3, which is solving multi-step inequalities. And you guys already saw two of my videos, section 1 and section 2, about solving inequalities. But in this one is different because we are going to have multiple steps. That's why we have the word multi-step inequalities. Just to keep in mind is that these are not equations because you guys won't have an equal sign. The four types of inequalities that we are going to have are greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. We also have greater than, and we have the less than. So one of those inequalities is going to be present, but the way you guys solve inequalities is the same way as when you guys have inequations. You guys will have to do the inverse operations. You have to keep a balance on the two sides of the inequality. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do it to the other side. And you guys want to isolate the variable. Whatever variable you guys have, you want that by itself. So let's look at the first one here. And the inequality does have a fraction. We have -3 minus m over 5 is greater than or equal to -9. So we are going to start by getting rid of the fractions. One way to get rid of the fractions is you can multiply by the denominator, and that's going to help you guys get rid of that fraction. I also like to put the line under the inequality so I can show the two sides of the inequality. We have the left side over here and we have the right side. But notice that the denominator of the fraction is a 5 here. So that means in order to get rid of this fraction, I'm going to multiply by 5 because it's going to simplify. When you multiply by 5, it's going to simplify by the denominator. But the rule says that whatever you do to one side, you have to do it to the other side, and you have to multiply every single number by that number you guys want to multiply. So this number here, I'm going to multiply by 5, the fraction multiply by 5, and this one multiply by 5. So let's go ahead and multiply here in parentheses times 5, multiply the fraction times 5, and the other side you also multiply by a 5. So we know that when you multiply that 5 times a -3, that's going to be your -15. So here we have the number. When you guys multiply the fraction, remember that the 5 on the top of the fraction and the denominator 5, when you guys divide those two, that's going to be 1. So you can cross simplify those two 5s, the bottom and the 5 you're multiplying. So all we have left is the minus with the m here. So I'm going to put minus m. On the other side, you just multiply those two integers, the -5 and -9 and the 5. And that's going to be a -45. So you keep going. Now that you guys don't have fractions, you guys look at the side with the variable and the constant that's on the same side of the variable, which is this one here. The -15 is a constant because it doesn't have a letter, it doesn't have a variable. You guys are going to do the inverse operation. You guys do the opposite. So I'm going to add 15 to the left side, and to keep that balance, remember in an inequality or equation, whatever you do to one side, you have to do it to the other side. So you guys have 15 over here. So you guys will cancel the 15s on the left side, -15 plus 15. You guys bring down the -m on the left side, and then you guys add or combine -45 plus 15. That's going to be -30. Next to the m, right here, we have a negative. In your answer, you guys can never have a negative variable. So we have to get rid of the negative. Keep in mind that we do have an invisible 1 with the negative next to the m because we don't have an actual number that you can see, but we can say it is an invisible 1. So since we have a -1 with the negative, you guys can divide by a -1 to get rid of the number because that's going to turn positive. -1 divided by -1, that turns into +1 right there. But whatever you do, remember, whatever you do to one side, you have to do it to the other side. So you also divide by -1. So when you guys do that, we do have the m over here. Keep in mind that we are dividing by a negative number. So when you have inequalities, one of the rules you have to remember is if you guys have a negative dividing by a negative, you're going to have to switch the inequality here. So that greater than or equal to, you're going to have to flip it or switch it. So what I mean is you have to make it a less than or equal to. And on the other side, you guys will have a +30. -30 divided by -1 is positive 30. Now, let me explain this again because it's very important that you guys check your signs when you guys are dividing or when you guys are multiplying by a number. Here, since we do have a negative, let's go back to this step. Next to the m, we had to divide by a -1 to make this positive. That's why we have a positive invisible 1 here. Since we are dividing by a -1 on both sides, whatever you do to one side, you do to the other side. The rule says you have to flip the inequality. So this greater than is going to become a less than. So that's when you flip it. If you multiply by a negative number, you also have to flip the inequality. If you guys multiply by a positive, do not change the sign, do not change the inequality, it will stay the same. It only switches when you guys divide by a negative. Now for my set notation, remember that we do use brackets. So I'm going to use brackets here. We start with the variable. In this case, we have an m. So m is going to be such that m is less than or equal to 30. You just copy your answer, which is your inequality here. You copy that inside of your set notation. So it's very common to have this answer in set notation, but you guys solve the inequality. Now this one is a little bit different because notice the fraction. You guys have one big fraction and you have a binomial or two terms on top of the fraction. You have the 5x and the -10. Everything is over the denominator of 2. So when you guys have that as a fraction, you will have to multiply by the denominator. You guys want to get rid of the fraction, which is in this case a 2. And then you guys have to be careful when you guys simplify the two numbers. So the other side we have a 20 and the inequality, it is a less than here. So let me put the line under the inequality. I'm going to multiply the left side by 2 and notice that I am going to only multiply one time by 2 because I have one fraction, so I just need to multiply this one fraction by the denominator one time. I know that you guys see the -10 on the top, but do not multiply that by 2. You only multiply one time because you have a big fraction. On the other side, you also have to multiply by 2 because whatever you do to one side, you have to do it to the other side. So you guys are going to cross simplify this 2 and the 1 on the bottom, and you guys are going to keep what's on top of the fraction, which is the 5x minus 10. On the other side, you guys multiply 20 times 2, and that's going to be 40. Now that you guys don't have fractions, you can start solving just by doing the inverse operations. So I look at the side of the variable, so the variable's on the left side, and I want to eliminate the constants. So this -10, it is the constants because it doesn't have a letter, it doesn't have a variable. So I'm going to do the opposite, plus 10 here, and I add 10 over here. So I know I will cancel the 10s. You guys bring down the 5x here, and on the other side, you guys get 50. 40 plus 10 is 50. You guys, the next step, want to eliminate that 5, the number next to the variable. Remember, these are multiplying, so the opposite, multiplication, is division. So I'm going to multiply by 5 to get rid of that number. And on the other side, I also multiply by 5. So this turns into 1. I'm going to put a big 1 right there so you guys can see it is an invisible 1. We don't need it. So you bring down the x. Notice that I am dividing by a positive number. So I do not change the inequality. The inequality is going to stay the same. You bring it down and you guys have less than 10. Now notice that the x is on the left side, which is very common. So when you guys write down your set notation, you guys have x is such that, and we keep the x is less than 10. So keep in mind that you can also graph your solution, and looking at the inequality, I'm looking at this symbol here, the inequality. It doesn't have the little line on the bottom, so my circle is going to be open. And since the inequality is pointing to the variable, my arrow is going to go to the left. So you're going to put an open circle on top of the 10, and you guys will have your arrow going to the left, showing that the numbers less than 10, the 9, the 8, the 7, the 5, the 3, the -1, the -4, those are on the left side of the 10. But in this section, we're not graphing, we are just solving the inequality. So we do have the set notation, which is the solution. Now these two inequalities, we are going to use multi-steps because we do have parentheses where we have to distribute. Maybe we're going to have like terms, so we have to combine like terms. And we also have to check if we divide by a negative, we're going to have to flip or switch our inequality, because that's one of the rules when you solve inequalities. If you divide or you multiply by a negative, you have to switch the direction of the inequality. So let's go ahead and look at the first one here. I notice that I do have parentheses, and outside I have a 4. So I am multiplying 4 times the quantity of 3m minus 5. And I do have the plus 7 outside of the parentheses is greater than or equal to m plus 8m plus 3. So I'm going to put the line under the inequality here. I am going to multiply the 4, which is this one right here. And I am going to distribute 4 times 3 and the 4 times the negative 5. Now the 3 has an m, so I'm going to have to keep that variable as well. But I'm going to multiply 4 times 3, that's going to be 12, keep the m. And you guys multiply the 4 times the minus 5, which is a negative 20. Now the 7 outside the parentheses is not inside, it's outside. So you're not going to multiply this by the 4. You just bring it down as it is, plus 7 here. And on the right side, you have to check if you guys have like terms, or you can maybe distribute, or you guys maybe can get rid of the fractions. Obviously, we don't have fractions here. These are not like terms. We don't have parentheses, so we don't have to distribute anything. So you just bring down those two terms, the 8m and the plus 3 here. If we go back to the left side, I notice I have two like terms. These are constants because they don't have any letters. The numbers negative 20 and plus 7. So you guys can combine. You bring down the 12m here, and negative 20 plus 7, that's negative 13. And on the other side, you just bring down the 8m plus the 3. Now, I do have variables on both sides, a 12m and the 8m on this side. So I want to get the variables on the same side. That's one of the steps when you guys solve. You want the variables on the same side. So my way of doing this is I look for the lowest term with the variable. So I have a 12, 8. So 8 is the lowest one. And I'm going to do the opposite of the lowest one. So I have a minus 8m here. That's the opposite of positive 8m. So I do the minus 8m over here. Whatever you do to one side, you guys have to do it to the other side. So you guys will combine the 12m and the minus 8m, and that's going to be 4m. You guys bring down the 13. On the other side, you guys can cancel the 8m minus 8m, and you guys have the 3. The next step, notice we do have just one m on the left side, so that's the variable. I want to get rid of the constants that's on the same side of the variable, which is this one, the minus 13. That's a constant because it doesn't have a letter. So I'm going to do the opposite, plus 13, and I add 13 to the other side. So you guys will have 4m. You guys cancel the negative 13 and the positive 13. And on the other side, we have a 16, 3 plus 13. So now, the last step, you guys want to get rid of the 4 next to the m. So remember, these are multiplying because there's nothing in between. So by default, it is multiplication. So I am going to divide by 4 here. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other side. Double check the signs of the number that you're dividing. This is positive. So I do not have to change the inequality because it's positive. You only change it when it's negative. Now the 4 divided by 4 here is just 1. So we don't need that 1. There's the m. You bring down the inequality greater than or equal to. And on the other side, we get a 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4. For my set notation, you guys have m is such that m is greater than or equal to 4. And that is inside the brackets for my solution. Now this one here, it has two different parentheses, and outside of the parentheses, we have different numbers. We have a 2 here, we have a negative 3 outside here. So I am going to, first of all, distribute because we need to multiply. So let me put the line under the inequality here. Let's start with the 2 here on the left side. So 2 times the h, that's going to be 2h. and then you multiply 2 times the positive 6. That's going to be positive 12. On the other side, you guys are going to multiply the negative 3 right here times the 8. That's negative 24. And the negative 3 times the negative h. Careful with the signs. That's going to be positive 3h. Now, notice that we do have variables on both sides, 2h and 3h here. I do not have like terms on the left side, so I'm not going to combine anything. I don't have like terms on the right side, so I'm not going to combine anything. So let's get the variables on the same side. So the smallest term with the variable is here. 2h is smaller than 3h. So I'm going to do the opposite of 2. That's going to be a minus 2h here. So you subtract 2h over here. So when you guys do that, you guys cancel the 2h on this side. You bring that to positive 12. We don't need that plus sign. It's just a number. We do have the negative 24 over here, so you do need the negative, so you bring it down. And you guys combine the h, 3 minus 2. That's 1 plus 1h. Remember, we don't need that 1 next to the variable, so it's just h. And it's positive because the biggest number is positive. The 3 is bigger than the minus 2. So h is not by itself, so I'm going to get rid of the constants. This minus 24, you do the opposite. So I'm going to add 24 to both sides. You add over here. So when you guys add, you will have 36 on this side. And on the right side, this cancels. And we have a positive h. Now, the way you guys write down your answer, you are not going to change the inequality because you're not dividing by any negative number. You guys don't have to change the inequality. So you bring down the 36, you bring down the inequality, and it is a greater than. I don't change the sign, the direction of the inequality. I just bring it down, greater than, and we have an h on this side. Now that's not very common to have the variable on the right side. So if you want to write down the variable on the left side, you can switch the number and the variable. But if you guys switch the variable to the other side, when you have an inequality, you also have to flip. You have to switch everything in that inequality. So another way to write down your answer, you put or here. H is on the left side. Switch the inequality because you have to do that every time you guys switch the variable and the number. And we have a 36 on the right side. So my set notation is h is just such that h is less than 36. And you close the brackets. Keep in mind that if you guys switch those answers right here, the h and the number, you also have to switch the inequality. Don't forget that if you guys need to take the variable on the left side. Now we also have special cases when we are solving inequalities, like we had special cases when we were solving equations. It's very similar, but remember that we don't have equal signs in this one. We do have inequalities. So special cases, if the variable is canceled when you guys are trying to solve, check the inequality to see if it is a true statement or a false statement after you guys cancel those variables. So this is what I mean. When you guys do not have any more variables, the x cancels, the y cancels, or whatever variables, the a cancels. If you look at the inequality, you are going to have some numbers on the left side, some numbers on the right side, just like the ones I'm showing you guys on the screen. So if the inequality is true, for example, like this one, 21 is greater than or equal to 21, that's true because 21, it is equal to 21. It's not greater than, but it says here greater than or equal to. So it's true because it's equal to. Our solution that we have, it's all real numbers. The variables cancel. You don't have any more letters, any more variables. So you guys have, if it's true statement, you guys will have all real numbers. The symbol that I show you guys when we're solving equations, and same thing is here, same symbol. It looks like an R, and it represents all real numbers. Now, if the variables cancel and the inequality, the statements that you guys have left is false, so this one here, 6 is less than negative 20, that's false, then we have an empty set. It's also very common to say no solution if you guys have an empty set. But the way we are going to write down our answer in our classroom is empty sets. The symbol that we use is a 0, and you just cross it out. So every time you guys have inequalities and the statement is false when the variables cancel, remember that's empty set. And if you guys have an inequality that is true, you guys have all real numbers. I'm going to give you guys a few more examples so you guys understand the inequalities, because it's very important. If you get the wrong answer, if you guys do not understand inequalities, you guys will get the wrong answer, and obviously you might get a low score on your quizzes and tests. So here's more examples. You guys can have a number 13 is greater than 13. Now this one, guys, notice that it's very similar to the one I have here. 21 is greater than or equal to 21, but this one's different because this inequality doesn't have the or equal to here. So 13 is greater than 13. That's false. It's not greater than, it's actually equal to 13. But once again, since we don't have the little line on the bottom, it's not saying that it's equal to, it's only saying that it's greater than. So be careful with those inequalities. You guys need to understand what it means. Another one that's very confusing for students is if you guys have -3 is less than or equal to -4. A lot of students say that's true, but it's actually false, guys. This one, -3 is less than or equal to -4. Well, you guys already know that they're not equal. -3 is not equal to -4. But -3 is less than -4. That's false, because when you guys compare that on your number line, and I show you guys at the beginning of the school year how you guys can know if a number is greater than another number, you guys can look at the number line. And on the negative side, so I'm going to put the 0 right here, and I'm going to have the -1, -2, the -3 here, the -4 over here, and then you have the -5, -6, and so on and so on. So on the negative side of the number line, the further away you get from 0, the number becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Another way you guys can see it is the closer you get to 0, the number gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So the biggest number is always closer to 0. It's the one that is closest to 0. And the one further away from 0, if you guys want to look at the other way, is the smallest number. So here, you guys can see that -4 is further away from 0 than -3. So this -4 is less. It's smaller than -3. So this inequality is saying that -3 is less than -4. That's false. Okay. You can also, if you go back to the beginning of the school, you guys can also say this one here, -3, is on the right side of the -4, and I'm using the word great with the G because G is for greater. I know that's not how you spell great with the G, but great is kind of like saying greater. So this number is on the right side of the -4. So the -3 is greater than -4. So this is false because we're saying that -3 is less than or equal to -4. It's not less than, it's not equal to, so it's false. So be sure to check what the inequality means when you are reading the statements, okay? So let's try a couple examples where you guys need to solve, but the variables will cancel, and we need to choose one of these two answers. So notice the two inequalities. Just by looking at them, you cannot really say which one is an empty set, which one is all real numbers. So you guys actually have to start doing the work. So I'm going to do the one on the left side here. 9x minus 5 times the quantity of x minus 5, so we have parentheses, is less than or equal to 4 times the quantity of x minus 3. So I'm going to put the line here under the inequality. Okay. Outside of the first parentheses, I have a minus 5. Now, you never subtract before you multiply. And these are not like terms, so you can't really subtract anyway. But we do have to multiply first. This number outside of the parentheses, you're multiplying. Minus 5, that's a -5, times the whole parentheses. So I have to distribute first. So I'm going to bring down the 9x. I'm not going to do anything to it yet. But I will multiply, distribute this number, -5 times the x. That's a -5x here. And then you guys multiply the -5 times the -5 over here. That's a positive 25. Now, we are able to combine these two x's, 9x minus 5x, but let's go ahead and do it the right side. Let's jump to the other side and let's multiply the 4 times these parentheses. We have to distribute. So I am going to multiply 4 times x, that's 4x, and 4 times negative 3, that's negative 12. So let's go back to the left side. I'm going to combine like terms. Those are on the same side of the equation. So 9x here minus 5x, that's 4x right there. And then you guys bring down the plus 25. And we have a 4x on this side, on the right side, minus the 12. We do have variables on both sides, so I need to get the variables on the same side. Notice the variables are the same, 4x, 4x. It doesn't matter which one you actually do the opposite. So I'm just going to subtract 4x here. And whatever you do to one side, you do it to the other side. So when you guys do that, 4x cancels, 4x minus 4x cancels. So you bring down the 25 right here. I'm ready to bring down my inequality. So I put less than or equal to. Notice I didn't change the sign because I am not multiplying or dividing by a negative number. So I just bring down the inequality and I have a negative 12 on the right side. That one didn't cancel, so you guys have a negative 12. So read this statement, read the inequality. 25 is less than or equal to negative 12. That is false. 25 is not less than, negative 12 is not equal to, but it's not less than either. It's greater than. So since it's false, my solution is an empty set. There's no answer. There's no solution. But we are going to write down empty set for our actual answer. And the symbol that you guys can use is the 0 and you cross it out. That means that we do not have an answer. The statement is false, so it is an empty set. Now this one here, you also have to distribute, and notice that we have two parentheses. Let me just write down the line under the inequality here. So I'm going to multiply 3 times this parentheses, and on the other side, notice I do have 42 plus 6, but you never add or subtract before you multiply. That's PEMDAS, that's the order of operation. So we have to multiply the 6 times the parentheses first, okay? But let me just go back over here to multiply. So I am going to multiply the number outside the 3 times the 4m here. That's going to be 12m. And then I multiply 3 times the 6 over here. And that's going to be 18. On the other side, you bring down the 42. You do not do anything to that number, so we have a 42 here. And I'm going to multiply the positive 6. Remember, you distribute, you multiply before you add or subtract. So you multiply by the 2m, and that's going to be 12m. And then I multiply the 6 times the minus 4, and that's going to be negative 24. On the left side, you check if you guys can combine like terms. Those are not like terms. So I go to the right side, and I do have like terms on the right side. I have the 42 here and the minus 24 over here. So let me bring down the 12m here, positive 12m on the right side. I am going to combine 42 minus 24. That is a positive 18 because the biggest number is positive. The 42 is bigger, positive, and it is positive than the negative 24. So on the left side, you guys bring down the 12m and plus 18. We do have variables on both sides, so I am going to get the variables on the same side. So I subtract 12m. Doesn't matter which one you do first because they're the same variables, 12m and 12m. Subtract 12m on this side. So 12m minus 12m cancels. 12m minus 12m cancels. So we have the 18 on this side. I'm going to bring down the inequality less than or equal to and the positive 18 on this side. That's what we have left. The 18 on this side and the 18 on the other side. The right side is 18. 18 is less than or equal to 18. That is true because 18 is less than or equal to. They're equal. 18 is equal to 18. So this is a true statement. So when you guys have a true statement, our answer, our solution will be all real numbers. Now, when you guys say all real numbers, we do have a symbol that we can use, which looks like an R. And I'm just going to draw the R right here. I do 2 vertical lines like this, and I start doing an R. So that represents all real numbers. Once again, we know the solution is all real numbers because the variables cancel. There's no m's anymore. And this statement, 18 is less than or equal to 18, is true. So we have all real numbers. Now this one is more like an application problem where you guys have a sentence, you have a word problem, and it says here the instructions to write down the inequality and we want to solve the problem. So we really need to understand what the keywords that we need to use so we can write down the inequality. So we're doing 2 things. We are writing and then we are solving that inequality. So let's read the actual sentence or the statement. It says 2 times the sum of a number and 4 is no more than 3 times the sum of the number and 5 decreased by 2. So let's start from the beginning. It says here 2 times the sum of a number and 4. So let's stop right there for now and let's understand what that means. So I am multiplying 2 times the sum. So we know the sum, that's going to be addition. A number, for the number, I'm just going to use M for now. That you can use any letter, but I'm going to use M and 4. So how do you guys actually set that up? So I am going to multiply 2 times the sum. So that means I need parentheses with the sum. So there's the sum, and I'm going to multiply by 2. 2 times the sum. Now the sum of what? We have the sum of the number, which is M, and 4. So I'm going to put a 4 right here. So that's the first part. Then we need to keep going. It says is no more than. So we really need to know what is that inequality. No more than. And the inequality is less than or equal to. That is the no more than keywords or the statement. It means less than or equal to. So I'm going to put a less than or equal to here. And it says 3 times, so I'm going to multiply again, the sum of the number. So we know what the number is. The number is M, and 5 decrease by 2. So let's make sense of that to write down our actual problem. So I am going to multiply 3 times the sum. So again, there's a 3 times, I'm going to use parentheses, the sum of the number, M, again. And I'm going to add the 5, the sum of a number and 5. But it also says decrease by 2. So I need to subtract 2 because that's going to be decreased by 2. So we do have an inequality. We have a mathematical model. We have the inequality. Now we need to solve. So same process. You guys have multi-step inequalities. You guys need to solve. Check if you guys divide by a negative, because if you do, you have to change the inequality. So you have to follow all the steps that we have used to solve those inequalities. So let me write down, or let me draw the line here first of all. On the left side, I'm going to distribute this 2 times the m. That's 2m. Multiply the 2 times the 4. That's 8 over here. On the other side, I multiply the 3 times the m, 3m. And I multiply the 3 times the 5. That's a 15. And this number, minus 2, is not inside of the parentheses. So you bring it down. So I'm going to put a minus 2 right there. You bring it down. I do have like terms on the right side, the 15 and the minus 2 here. So I'm going to combine. So I have 3m and plus 13. 15 minus 2 is 13. On the left side, these are not like terms. So I just bring down the 2m plus 8. I do have variables on each side. I have a 2m and a 3m. So I'm going to get the smallest term with the variable 2m. And I'm going to do the opposite. Minus 2m, minus 2m. So you guys will have cancel the m's over here. There's a positive 8. And on the other side, 3m minus 2m. That's 1m. I don't need that 1. You just put an m. And you bring down the 13. You subtract 13 from both sides over here. So now you guys will have negative 5, 8 minus 13. You bring down the inequality, less than or equal to, and you guys have m, and you cancel the 13. Notice that m is already by itself, so I don't have to divide. I don't have to multiply. So that's it. We solve for the variable. But notice the variable is on the right side. So it's more common to have the variable on the left side. So I'm going to switch the direction. I'm going to switch the order so I can use my set notation. And remember that if you switch the variable to the left side, you have to flip everything in the inequality. You guys have to switch everything in, including the sign. So I'm going to put here my set notation. There's the brackets. M is such that switch the variable m, flip the inequality, which is greater than or equal to, and you guys have minus 5, and close the brackets. And that's how you solve. You guys have your solution in set notation. We do have an answer. M is such that m is greater than or equal to negative 5. You guys learn how to change a word problem or application problem. You guys see the statement up here. You look for those keywords, and you guys can circle, you guys can underline, just make sense of the problem. Write down your mathematical model, which is your inequality, and then you guys start solving, and you get the variable by itself. Alright guys, so this is my conclusion of this video. Make sure you guys are watching my other videos so you guys understand the process and the steps on how to solve inequalities. If you guys like my videos, you can hit that like button, and you guys can also subscribe to my channel. Make sure you guys practice, and I'll see you guys later.